The wind howled across the frozen plains of Montana like a living thing driving snow sideways in sharp, stinging sheets. Ethan Cole hunched low on his old draft horse, guiding the creaking wooden sled loaded with firewood back toward the rented cabin at the edge of town. His worn leather gloves were cracked from years of use, and his heavy coat did little to keep out the biting December cold. At 34, he looked older, lines etched deep around his eyes from too many sleepless nights and too many worries. But he kept pushing forward. He had to. Lily was waiting. The 6-year-old girl was the only reason he still got up every morning. 5 years ago, her mother had vanished without a word on the same night Ethan lost his job at the mill. Since then, it had been just the two of them, Ethan working double shifts, learning to braid hair from YouTube tutorials at 2 a.m., and whispering bedtime stories to fill the silence where a mother's voice should have been. He was almost at the final bend in the dirt road when he yanked the reins hard. A woman stood in the middle of the path, struggling under the weight of a massive bundle of firewood. Her thin coat was soaked through her shoulders, hunched against the wind. She took one shaky step, then another, boots slipping on the icy ground. The bundle shifted dangerously in her arms. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Even from 20 yards away, he knew that profile. The way she tilted her head when the wind hit her face, the slender line of her neck. Hannah Blake, his wife, the woman who had disappeared 5 years ago without a goodbye, leaving him with a 2-year-old daughter and a heart that still hadn't learned how to beat right again. Hannah looked up at the same moment, their eyes locked across the swirling snow. The bundle of firewood slipped from her numb fingers and crashed onto the frozen road with a dull thud. Her face went deathly pale. For a long second, neither of them moved. Then Hannah's knees buckled. She dropped to the ground beside the scattered wood, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs that the wind tried to steal away. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't ask why she had left. He didn't demand an explanation for the 5 empty years. He simply swung down from the horse boots, crunching in the snow, and walked toward her. Without a word, he knelt, gathered the scattered firewood, and lifted the heavy bundle onto his own shoulder as if it weighed nothing. Hannah looked up at him through tears frozen on her lashes. "Ethan, don't," she whispered, her voice raw. "I don't deserve 10 degrees below zero." Ethan cut in his voice, low and steady, though his jaw was tight. "You'll freeze to death, carrying this." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I just wanted to see her. One time. Please." Before Ethan could answer, a small voice rang out from the sled behind him, muffled by blankets, but clear as a bell. "Daddy, why did you stop?" A little girl peeked out from under the thick wool blankets, her rosy cheeks flushed from the cold brown curls escaping her knit hat. Lily, 6 years old, the spitting image of her mother. Hannah's breath hitched. She stared at the child like she was seeing a ghost. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Lily tilted her head, studying the crying woman with innocent curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked softly. "Why are you crying?" The wind howled between them, carrying away the silence that followed. Hannah's hand flew to her mouth as a broken sob escaped her. Ethan stood frozen in the snow, the heavy bundle of firewood still balanced on his shoulder, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack his ribs. 5 years. 5 years of silence. And now, On a frozen road in the middle of nowhere, the woman who had shattered his world had returned carrying nothing but firewood and a pain that looked too heavy for any one person to bear. And she had come back for one reason only: to see their daughter. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Ethan didn't answer Lily's question. Instead, he turned back to the woman still kneeling in the snow. Hannah's shoulders shook with silent sobs, her breath coming in ragged clouds that the wind tore away instantly. For a long moment, the only sound was the howling storm and the faint creak of the sled behind them. He made his decision in the space of a single heartbeat. "Get in the sled," he said, his voice low but firm. "You'll freeze out here." Hannah looked up at him, eyes wide with disbelief. "Ethan!" "I can't." "You can," he cut in, "for Lily's sake, if nothing else. She doesn't need to watch this." He extended a gloved hand. After a hesitation that seemed to last forever, Hannah took it. Her fingers were ice cold even through the fabric. Ethan helped her to her feet, then guided her toward the sled where Lily was still peeking out from under the blankets, wide-eyed and curious. Lily scooted over. Ethan said gently, "We're giving this lady a ride home. It's too cold to walk." Lily nodded without argument, making space. As Hannah climbed in, Ethan draped one of the spare blankets over her shoulders. She clutched it tightly still, trembling, but said nothing more. The ride back to the small rented cabin was silent except for the crunch of snow under the horse's hooves and the occasional sniffle from Hannah. Lily kept stealing glances at the stranger, her small brow furrowed in concentration, as if trying to solve a puzzle she didn't quite understand. When they finally reached the cabin, warm light spilled from the windows. Ethan's sister Maya was already at the door, having heard the horse approach. The moment she saw Hannah, her expression hardened. "You've got to be kidding me," Maya muttered, arms crossing over her chest. "After 5 years, you just show up like this?" Ethan stepped between them, his voice quiet but final. "Not now, Maya. She's freezing. Let her inside first, for Lily." Maya's jaw tightened, but she moved aside. Ethan helped Hannah down from the sled and into the house. The warmth of the wood stove hit them immediately, a stark contrast to the brutal cold outside. Hannah stood in the middle of the modest living room, still wrapped in the blanket, looking completely out of place among the simple furniture and children's drawings taped to the walls. Lily hovered nearby, watching everything with big, curious eyes. "Are you okay now?" she asked softly. Hannah's gaze dropped to the little girl. Her lips trembled. I think so. Thank you for letting me come inside." Ethan motioned toward the couch. "Sit. I'll get you something warm to drink." While he moved to the kitchen, Maya followed him, her voice a low hiss. "What are you doing, Ethan?" "That woman walked out on you and Lily without a word. 5 years, not a single call, and now she's back carrying firewood like some lost soul. You really think this is a good idea?" "I don't think anything right now," Ethan replied, filling the kettle. "I just know it's 10 below outside and she's half frozen. We can talk about the rest later." Maya shook her head but didn't argue further. She grabbed a towel and brought it to Hannah, who accepted it with a grateful nod. A few minutes later, Ethan returned with a mug of hot tea. Hannah wrapped her hands around it, the steam rising to warm her face. Lily sat on the floor nearby, coloring quietly but stealing glances every few seconds. Hannah took a small sip, then spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't come here to ask for anything. I swear. I needed to see her, even from a distance. But then the storm got worse and my car broke down 2 miles back. I started walking. I thought if I could just get close enough to the cabin. Her words trailed off. She looked at Lily again, eyes filled with a pain so deep it seemed to fill the entire room. Ethan sat down across from her, his hands clasped tightly. You said you wanted to see her. Why now? After 5 years, Hannah's shoulders slumped. I know how it looks. I know what you must think of me. But I was sick, Ethan. Really sick. The kind of sick that makes you believe you're doing the right thing by disappearing. She slowly rolled up the sleeve of her sweater, revealing a long, faded scar along her arm. Cancer. Stage 3 when they caught it. I found out the same week you lost your job. I didn't want Lily to watch her mother waste away. I didn't want her to remember me like that. Ethan stared at the scar, his face unreadable. You could have told me. I was scared, Hannah whispered. Scared you'd try to keep me here, scared Lily would suffer more if I stayed and died slowly in front of her. So I left. I went to a clinic up north. I fought it alone. Chemo, surgery, the whole thing. She pulled her sleeve back down, hand shaking. I survived, barely. But by the time I was strong enough to come back, I heard you were doing okay. You had a steady job. Lily was happy. I thought, maybe it was better if I stayed away, that she didn't need a mother who had already failed her once. Lily looked up from her coloring, tilting her head. You're my mom. The question hung in the air like smoke. Hannah's breath caught. She looked at Ethan silently, begging for permission. Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't speak. He simply nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Hannah turned to the little girl, tears slipping down her cheeks again. Yes, sweetheart. I'm your mom. Lily studied her for a long moment, then asked the question that cut straight through Ethan's heart. Why did you leave me? Hannah broke. She slid off the couch and knelt on the floor in front of Lily, not touching her, just close enough to be seen clearly. I thought I was protecting you, she said, voice cracking. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Maya, who had been standing silently in the doorway, finally spoke, her tone sharp but controlled. You don't get to just walk back in and say you were wrong. Ethan raised her alone. He learned how to braid her hair at 2 a.m. He sat with her through every nightmare. You don't get to cry and make it all better in one night. Hannah didn't argue. She simply nodded, accepting the truth in Maya's words. I know, she whispered. I'm not asking to come back as her mother. I'm asking for a chance to explain. And maybe if you'll let me to see her sometimes, even if it's just from a distance. Ethan watched his daughter, who was now looking between the 2 adults with wide, confused eyes. He reached out and gently pulled Lily onto his lap, wrapping his arms around her protectively. We'll talk about this tomorrow, he said quietly. Right now, you need dry clothes and rest. The storm's getting worse. Hannah nodded, too exhausted to argue. Later that night, after Lily had been tucked into bed and Maya had gone home with a final warning look at Ethan, the house fell quiet. Hannah sat on the couch in the borrowed clothes, staring into the fire. Ethan sat across from her, the weight of 5 years pressing down on him. You said someone threatened you, he said finally. Who? Hannah looked up, her eyes haunted. There was a man. He helped pay for my treatment when I had nothing left, But he wanted something in return. He said if I ever tried to come back, he'd make sure you lost custody. He had pictures, old arguments, things he could twist to make you look unstable. I believed him. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. And now he's back, Hannah whispered. He found out I was trying to get close again. He said if I don't disappear for good this time, he'll take Lily away from you. Permanently. The fire crackled in the silence that followed. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low and steady. No one is taking my daughter from me. Not him, not you, not anyone. He looked at her eyes hard but not unkind. But if you're telling the truth, Hannah, then we have a problem, a big one. Hannah met his gaze, exhausted but resolute. I'm not lying. Not anymore. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the small cabin, the real storm was only just beginning. The morning after Hannah's arrival, the small cabin felt heavier than the snow piling up outside. Ethan stood at the kitchen counter making coffee, his movements mechanical, while Maya paced behind him like a caged animal. You've lost your mind, she hissed, keeping her voice low so Lily wouldn't hear from the next room. 5 years, Ethan. 5 years of you barely sleeping, working double shifts, learning how to braid a little girl's hair at 2 a.m. because she cried for her mother. And now she shows up with a sob story and you just let her in. Ethan didn't turn around. She was freezing Maya. What was I supposed to do? Leave her on the road? You were supposed to call the police. Or drive her to a shelter. Not bring her into the house where your daughter sleeps. From the living room came the sound of Lily's soft voice talking to Hannah. The little girl was showing her a drawing she had made the night before, a stick figure family with 3 people holding hands under a crooked sun. Maya stopped pacing and gripped the edge of the counter. Lily is not a bridge for you two to cross. She's a child. She doesn't understand what it means when someone disappears for 5 years and then comes back carrying firewood like some tragic heroine. Ethan finally turned his eyes, tired but steady. I'm not letting her back in as a wife. I'm letting her get warm and dry. That's all. Maya laughed bitterly. You think that's where it ends? She already asked to see Lily. Next she'll want weekends, then holidays. Then she'll cry about how sorry she is and you'll start wondering if maybe she really was sick. If maybe you should give her another chance. And Lily will be the one who gets hurt when it all falls apart again. In the living room, Lily's laughter floated through the doorway, bright, innocent, trusting. The sound made both adults fall silent. Later that morning, word spread through the small town of Cedar Falls faster than the storm itself. By the time Ethan walked Lily to the corner store for milk, people were already staring. Mrs. Hargrove from the post office paused mid-conversation to watch them pass. At the gas station, 2 men lowered their voices as Ethan paid. Wife's back one muttered. After all this time, probably wants the kid, the other replied. Or the house. You watch. Ethan kept his head down, but he felt every glance like a weight on his shoulders. Lily noticed too. She slipped her small hand into his and squeezed. Bah, why is everyone looking at us? They're just curious, sweetheart, he said, forcing a smile. Nothing to worry about. But inside, the fear was real. In a town this small, gossip had power. And if people started whispering that Ethan's ex-wife had returned and the home wasn't stable, a custody challenge could become very real, especially if Hannah's mysterious, they decided to make trouble. That afternoon, Maya took charge like the older sister she was. She sat Hannah down at the kitchen table with a notebook and pen. "Paperwork," Maya said flatly. "Hospital records from 5 years ago, any court documents. Proof you were sick. Proof you tried to come back. I'm not letting you near Lily until I see it with my own eyes." Hannah didn't argue. She wrote down the name of the clinic up north and the doctor who had treated her. "I'll call them tomorrow. They have everything." Maya crossed her arms. "You're not staying here. There's a room at Mrs. Whitaker's boarding house. You can stay there until we sort this out." "Ethan will drive you." Hannah nodded slowly, accepting the boundary. But as she stood to gather her few things, her hands trembled. Before anyone could move, a knock sounded at the front door, sharp official. Ethan opened it to find a woman in a gray pantsuit standing on the porch, clipboard in hand. Snow dusted her shoulders. "Mr. Cole, I'm Rebecca Lang from Child Protective Services. We received a report concerning the welfare of your daughter Lily." Ethan felt the floor tilt beneath him. "A report from who?" The woman's expression remained neutral. "I'm not at liberty to say, but we need to speak with you and assess the home environment, especially with an unexpected adult now staying here." Maya stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "CPS doesn't just show up unannounced on a Saturday afternoon. Who sent you?" Rebecca Lang didn't flinch. "I'm here to ensure the child's safety." "May I come in?" Hannah appeared in the hallway behind Ethan, her face draining of all color the moment she saw the woman. "It's them," she whispered, voice barely audible. "They found me." The air in the small cabin grew thick with tension. Ethan looked from the CPS worker to Hannah, then back again. The weight of every choice he'd made in the last 24 hours pressing down on him like the snow outside. And in that moment, he realized the storm that had brought Hannah back wasn't over. It had only just begun. The woman in the gray pantsuit didn't flinch when Maya stepped forward, phone already in hand. "CPS doesn't show up unannounced like this." Maya said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Who sent you? And don't give me that confidentiality crap." Rebecca Lang offered a thin professional smile. "I'm here to ensure the child's safety, ma'am, especially with an unexpected adult now residing in the home." "May I come in?" Before Ethan could answer, Hannah's voice cut through the room like a whisper of ice. "It's them." All eyes turned to her. Hannah stood frozen in the hallway, one hand gripping the doorframe, her face drained of color. Her eyes were locked on the CPS worker with pure, unmistakable terror. Gustavo Reyes stepped out from behind the woman in the gray suit, his tailored black coat dusted with snow. He was in his late 40s, sharp-featured with the calm, calculated smile of a man who had never lost a negotiation. A sleek black SUV idled at the curb behind him, engine still running. "Mr. Cole," Gustavo said smoothly, as if they were old acquaintances meeting for coffee. "I see you've been busy playing hero." "How touching." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Who the hell are you?" Gustavo's smile never wavered. "Gustavo Reyes, real estate developer, and more importantly, the man who paid for Hannah's cancer treatment 5 years ago. Every single dollar." In return, she agreed to disappear quietly. No contact, no drama, no messy custody battles that could damage my reputation in this town. Hannah's breath hitched. "You promised you'd leave them alone." "I did," Gustavo replied, adjusting his leather gloves. Until you broke your end of the deal, you came back. You started lurking near the school. You even had the nerve to show up here. His gaze flicked to Lily, who was peeking from behind Ethan's leg, wide-eyed and silent. And now I have to clean up the mess. Maya's fingers flew across her phone screen. I'm calling the real CPS right now. This woman is an imposter. Gustavo chuckled softly. Go ahead. By the time they verify anything, the damage will be done. A single father with a mysterious ex-wife suddenly living under his roof. A child caught in the middle of adult drama. Judges don't like instability. Mr. Cole. Especially when there's a generous offer on the table for this property. He pulled a folded document from his coat and held it out. Sign the sale agreement. Market value plus 20%. You walk away with enough money to start over somewhere nice. Hannah disappears again. Everyone wins. Ethan stared at the paper, then at Gustavo, then at Hannah, whose face had gone deathly pale. You're using my daughter as leverage, he said, voice dangerously low. I'm offering you an exit ramp, Gustavo corrected. Take it, or watch, while Child Protective Services tears your family apart. Your choice. The tension in the small cabin was suffocating. Lily clutched Ethan's leg tighter. Maya was on the phone, now speaking rapidly to the real CPS hotline, demanding verification. And then came the knock. Everyone turned as a new figure appeared at the open door, an older man in a heavy winter coat, snow on his shoulders, carrying a thick medical file. Dr. Elias Carter, the oncologist who had treated Hannah years ago. I received a call from Maya Cole, Dr. Carter said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. His eyes landed on Gustavo. And I thought it was time someone told the truth. Gustavo's polished smile faltered for the first time. Dr. Carter opened the file and held up a signed document. This is a sworn statement from 5 years ago. Hannah Blake was coerced into signing a no-contact agreement while she was still recovering from surgery and chemotherapy. She was told that if she ever reached out to her husband or child, Mr. Reyes here would ensure Ethan Cole lost custody on grounds of unstable home environment due to a mentally ill spouse. He looked directly at Ethan. She didn't leave because she stopped loving you. She left because she was threatened with losing her daughter forever. The room went dead silent. Maya lowered her phone. CPS confirmed. No appointment was ever scheduled. This woman is an imposter. The fake social worker bolted for the door. One of the deputies who had arrived earlier with the real CPS team moved quickly, blocking her path. Gustavo's face had gone from confident to calculating in seconds. You have no proof this was me, he said coolly. Dr. Carter held up another document. I have the original threat recorded in my patient notes. And I have witnesses from the clinic who heard you in the hallway that day. Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady but burning with quiet fury. You used my wife's illness to blackmail her. You tried to take my daughter to force me to sell my land? All for what? A few extra acres. Gustavo adjusted his coat, composure cracking but not broken. Sign the papers, Cole. Walk away rich. Or spend the next 2 years in court fighting for your child while I make sure every social worker in this state questions your stability. Ethan looked at Lily, then at Hannah, who was still holding onto the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Then he looked back at Gustavo and spoke the words that would change everything. I'm not selling, and I'm not afraid of you. Gustavo's eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake," No, Ethan said. "The mistake was thinking you could use my family as collateral." Outside, the wind howled louder as if the storm itself was bearing witness. The real question now hung in the freezing air between them. Would Ethan dare take this fight all the way to court? Or would the pressure of protecting Lily force him to give in and sell the only home his daughter had ever known? Ethan didn't sell the land. The very next morning, he and Maya drove to the county courthouse through fresh snow and filed a formal complaint against the fake CPS worker Gustavo Reyes and the entire orchestrated threat. Dr. Carter's medical files, the recorded phone calls Hannah had secretly kept from 5 years ago, and the falsified documents were submitted as evidence. Within 48 hours, the real Child Protective Services launched an investigation. Gustavo's polished empire began to crack. 2 weeks later, in a tense courtroom hearing, the judge reviewed the mountain of proof. Gustavo sat stone-faced as his lawyer tried to spin the narrative. But the evidence was undeniable. The fake social worker had already turned state's witness. The threats, the coercion, the attempted extortion of Ethan's property, all of it was laid bare. The judge's gavel came down with finality. "Mr. Reyes, you are hereby ordered to cease all contact with the Cole family. Any further interference will result in immediate arrest. This court finds the actions taken against Mr. Cole and his daughter to be malicious and without merit. Gustavo lost the land deal. He lost his reputation in the small town. And Hannah's father, the man who had once pulled the strings from afar, quietly withdrew after a private conversation with his daughter that no one else was allowed to witness. But the hardest battle wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the small living room of the rented cabin on a cold January night. Lily had overheard the adults talking. She had heard the word mother. She had heard the fear in her father's voice. And now the little girl stood in the doorway in her dinosaur pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit eyes wide and uncertain. "Bah, is she really my mom?" Ethan knelt down in front of his daughter, heartbreaking at the confusion on her face. Hannah stood a few feet away, frozen, not daring to step closer. "Yes, sweetheart," Ethan said gently. "She is." Lily looked past him at Hannah, the woman who had carried her for 9 months and then disappeared from her life. Hannah's knees buckled. She slowly lowered herself to the floor so she was at Lily's height, tears already streaming down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Lily stared at her for a long, silent moment. Then the little girl did something that shattered every heart in the room. She walked forward and touched Hannah's cold hand. "Mommy, you're really cold." It wasn't a question. It wasn't an accusation. It was the simple, instinctive observation of a child who saw someone hurting and wanted to make it better. Hannah broke completely. She pulled Lily into her arms and sobbed like a woman who had been holding 5 years of grief inside her chest. Lily wrapped her small arms around her mother's neck, burying her face in her shoulder. "I missed you," Lily mumbled into the fabric. "Even when I didn't remember your face, I missed you." Ethan watched them, tears burning in his own eyes. Maya stood in the doorway, arms crossed tightly, but her expression had finally softened. The weeks that followed were not a fairy tale. Hannah did not simply move back in and become mom overnight. She stayed at Mrs. Whittaker's boarding house and began the slow, painful work of proving herself through actions, not words. She woke up at dawn to help Ethan chop firewood. She sat with Lily every afternoon doing homework patient even when the little girl got frustrated. She learned how to make the 3-cheese grilled sandwiches Ethan had perfected during the lonely years. She never pushed. She never demanded. She simply showed up. Maya watched it all with the sharp eyes of a protective older sister. One night, she found Hannah sitting on the porch steps at midnight quietly sewing a button back onto Lily's favorite winter coat. "You don't have to do that at this hour," Maya said. Hannah didn't look up. "I know, but I want to." Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat down beside her. "If you stay," she said finally, "you stay for good. No running when it gets hard, no disappearing again. Lily doesn't deserve that twice." Hannah nodded, tears falling onto the tiny coat in her hands. "I promise." Spring arrived with soft green shoots pushing through the thawing earth. One evening in late April, Ethan led Hannah out to the back porch after Lily had gone to bed. The stars were bright above the Montana sky. He carried a small wooden box he had made himself. Inside was a simple ring carved from the old oak beam that had once held up the roof of their first home, the same beam that had sheltered him and Lily through 5 hard winters. On the inside, he had carefully burned a single word Lily Hannah's breath caught. "Ethan. I don't deserve this." He took her hand and slipped the ring onto her finger. "I'm not asking you to come back as the woman who left," he said quietly. "I'm asking you to stay as the woman who came back, the one who chose to fight for our daughter, the one who's been showing up every single day, if you'll have us." Hannah looked at the ring, then at him, tears shining in her eyes. "I'll stay," she whispered. "Every day. For the rest of my life." From the doorway, Lily's small voice drifted out into the night. "Does this mean I can call her Mom?" Now Ethan and Hannah both laughed through their tears as Lily ran outside in her pajamas and threw herself into their arms. The 3 of them stood together under the vast Montana sky, a family that had not been built in the easy beginning, but in the hard, honest middle. A family forged from loss, from courage, from the simple, powerful choice to come back and stay. And somewhere in the quiet night, the old note that once said unwanted had finally been proven wrong. Because hope had been found. And she was home.